The moment I entered the hospital room, my husband, Henry, announced I might be in a wheelchair for life. They said I'm paralyzed on one side.
I might be in a wheelchair for life. They said I'm paralyzed on one side.
Immediately after, my in-laws who came with us collapsed to their knees. Not like this. I can't believe, Henry. How could this happen? I can't believe it.
Not like this. I can't believe, Henry. How could this happen? I can't believe it.
How could this happen? I can't believe it.
After their words of grief, my in-laws quickly stood up and encouraged my husband. It's going to be okay, Henry. We're here for you. Yes, exactly. This is when we need to pull together as a family. Right, Julie?
It's gonna be okay, Henry. We're here for you.
Yes, exactly. This is when we need to pull together as a family. Right, Julie?
My in-laws nodded in agreement, looking at me. However, my next action was unimaginable for my husband and in-laws. I laughed and said, "What are you saying, Henry? Ha ha ha. This is too funny. My stomach hurts from laughing." Then I slapped Henry's back hard, bursting into laughter.
What are you saying, Henry? Ha ha, this is too funny. My stomach hurts from laughing.
Thep, then, a sharp snap sound echoed. It was the sound of my mother-in-law slapping my cheek.
Julie, are you even Henry's wife? Don't you realize the love of your life might never walk again?
You might be trying to cheer him up, but there's a way to do things. Mom, calm down. If you yell like that, the next room will hear us. But Julie, that was not okay. Mocking an injured person, husband or not, is unacceptable. I can't forgive that either.
Oh, Mom, calm down. If you yell like that, the next room will hear us.
My husband and in-laws looked at me, becoming visibly uneasy. Then they asked me, "Julie, you're joking, right? What do you mean you've already filed for divorce?" "Yes, what are you talking about?" Isn't at a time like this is when we need to support each other as a couple. That joke is too dark. Is there some reason behind this?
Julie, you're joking, right? What do you mean voted filed for divorce?
Yes. What are you talking about at a time like this? This is when we need to support each other as a couple.
That joke is too dark. Is there some reason behind this?
Of course this is no joke. I'm serious. Henry feels the same, right after all.
You've been flashing a filled-out divorce paper at me and treating me harshly. That's why I've been considering divorce. I wanted to tell her that today. The in-laws looked as if they wanted to say they had no idea he'd thought that far. Then, looking subtly downward, my husband heard me blurt out, "It's totally fine. I already filed for divorce." Today might be the last time we see each other.
It's totally fine. I already filed for divorce. Today might be the last time we see each other.
Kissing my husband, I recounted our past. Was it about a year after we got married? You suddenly became cold to me, and I thought I did something wrong. I asked you many times why, but you never explained anything. You just started to say hurtful things more often and complained about household chores. I apologized desperately, not wanting to anger or scold you, but just wanting to go back to how we used to be, laughing together. However, I never understood what the problem was. Is it the in-laws turned their eyes to my husband? He sighed slowly and shook his head heavily, implying there's some misunderstanding.
It seems there's some misunderstanding.
Sure, we were strangers who started living together. A fight or two is normal, but that's just part of the process of deepening our bond as a family. We're just an ordinary couple like any other. My husband flashed his white teeth in a refreshing smile, and the in-laws exchanged glances before looking at me.
I see. The Henry we've known for decades isn't someone who would disregard others.
We're not doubting you, Julie, but it's hard for us to believe that our son would do such terrible things.
I nodded in agreement and showed an empathetic posture towards my in-laws.
Let's set aside the matter between Henry and me for now and talk about the accident.
What more is there to say about the accident? You've already heard everything from me, the person involved, right?
My husband asked with a puzzled look, and the in-laws nodded in agreement. I beamed with a big smile.
Actually, this accident wasn't caused by Henry alone. It happened while he was driving with a woman in the passenger seat.
Immediately, my husband's complexion changed.
Why? How do you know that? No, actually, just like Julie said, I had a colleague from work in the passenger seat. But it's kind of hard to mention having an accident with someone of the opposite sex. Fun in the car, so I kept quiet about it.
Why are you so flustered, Henry? That's right. It's common to have colleagues in the car, isn't it? There shouldn't be anything to hide.
Why are you so flustered, Henry?
That's right. It's common to have colleagues in the car, isn't it? There shouldn't be anything to hide.
Feeling my probing gaze, my husband briefly tensed his shoulders, but then retorted with spitting intensity.
Anyway, don't you dare accuse me, now I'm paralyzed, of something ridiculous.
I'm in a dark place right now and not in the mood for this.
Still planning to keep secrets. I see.
So, what are you talking about? This isn't something you say to someone who's suddenly fallen ill.
Who have we been talking about all this time? The person who's paralyzed is your lover, isn't it?
And Julie, how'd you bloat?
Henry has a mistress and she's paralyzed.
So, all this time Henry's been looking so solemn because, Julie, please tell us more.
At my in-laws' request, I decided to oblige. He started going on more business trips and working late. He also started buying brand-name clothes he never wore before when he was with me. Naturally, I suspected infidelity. I glanced away for a moment, then looked at the shoes my husband wore at the time of the accident that were in the hospital room. They were flashy, clearly not for business, causing my in-laws to... down.
Though it's not commendable, I snooped through Henry's phone.
I found messages and photos exchanged with his mistress, confirming the affair. Then, to gather more solid evidence, I had to catch them in the act. I followed Henry and saw him getting into a car with his mistress. In the midst of this, Henry was in a car accident.
So, the accident happened while Henry and his mistress were on a date.
That's correct, Mom. Dad, please look at this. These are the messages they were exchanging.
Actually showed them the photo gallery on my smartphone. I had taken these when I snooped through Henry's phone, just in case something like this might happen.
Henry, what were you thinking?
Not only did you betray Julie, but you also tried to deceive us with such lies. Explain yourself immediately.
No, it's not like that, Mom, Dad. There's a deep reason behind this. I had no choice. Just hear me out.
Is the atmosphere of quietly discussing things so as not to be overheard was nowhere to be found. The three of them started yelling at each other at the top of their lungs, seizing the opportunity, quietly slipped out of the hospital room and headed to the next room. Meanwhile, their unreserved family-style arguments continued unabated.
After all, Mom and Dad, had you been too lenient with Julie, I've always ignoring your own son's pleas like this. I've always respected you two, but now I'm just disappointed.
Others, the disappointment is on our side. After working hard for decades to support the family and sending you to a good college, and we thought we could finally relax. This is how you repay us. Ungrateful child.
You're the one who spoiled him too much.
But to think we raised a son who would deceive his own parents. Where did we go wrong? If there was a way to turn back time, I'd want to do it all over. And I want to do over with this marriage. I liked it from the start. A woman who's always trying to read my mood. Huh? Where's Julie? At that remark, both my father-in-law and mother-in-law relaxed their furious expressions and looked around. Until apparently, they hadn't noticed that I had slipped away. Thinking the timing was right, I opened the door to my husband's hospital room again.
I'm back. Did you make any progress in your discussion? Look like you're still busy. I brought some helpers from next door to help out. Helpers, Julie, who is this person you've brought?
What, you brought her from next door? Could it be the mistress has been in the room next to us all this time?
His face turned pale instantly.
Julie, why did you bring Amy here?
Do what you brought her from next door? Could it be the mistress has been in the room next to us all this time?
My in-laws looked baffled as I wheeled in a wheelchair, but my husband's reaction was different. His face turned pale instantly.
Are you okay if you're really Henry's mistress? I think what you did is inexcusable. But still, it's not good to strain yourself like this. Maybe you should go back to your room and rest. You.
The fact that my in-laws could still show concern for my husband's mistress made me wonder how much virtue they had accumulated in a past life. It almost seemed like they were made differently from regular humans. As I was deeply impressed, Amy, sitting in the wheelchair, began to speak in a voice as faint as a mosquito's.
See a floor sign. I didn't know. What are you talking about? I didn't know Henry was married. I only found out he wasn't married. I only found out he wasn't single when I heard your mother's voice from this room reaching mine next door. So he said it would be bad if she heard us from the next room. You were worried she would find out the truth. How twisted can you get?
What? Oh, Henry?
So that's why you said it would be bad if she heard us from the next room. You were worried she would find out the truth. How twisted can you get?
I was deceived by you. I was lured by your sweet words. I'm sorry for the trouble I caused your wife.
I was lured by your sweet words, and I'm sorry for the trouble I caused your wife. But I was deceived too. Please allow me to demand that this man take responsibility for causing my paralysis. Then Henry immediately knelt before Amy.
Amy, I'm sorry. I I kept my marriage a secret. I didn't want you to be worried. Debated the,
But it's all right now. Julie said she filed for divorce earlier. But take mates. Now we can finally be together. Your body may be paralyzed, but I'll be by your side for life. My husband, with a breezy smile, seemed to have reached the peak of my in-laws' anger. What are you doing, casually proposing like that? How can you have the nerve to do this in front of me and Julie? Unbelievable. This has got to be the most headache-inducing proposal ever. Just because you filed for divorce doesn't mean you can jump straight to remarriage, like it's some sort of game of life. It was like witnessing a volcanic eruption of fury. But my husband was idly picking his ear and looking off into the distance.
why should I care about Julie anymore? We're no longer husband and wife. Like, I'm big, like,
Why should I bother considering her feelings? I'm serious here.
Here's a question for you. Who is this?
The LCD screen displayed photo after photo of an unfamiliar man, and in each one there was a woman who looked very familiar. My husband blinked several times in confusion.
so what? Is this Amy? Why is she arm in arm with so many different men? Are these photoshopped or something?
Unfortunately, all these photos are the real deal.
Lies. There's no way Amy would do something like this, right? I mean, why would she be come out of a hotel with other men?
My husband's momentum vanished in an instant. I looked down at Amy, who was sitting in the wheelchair. She was staring down at her own knees. Not saying a word, it seemed she had no rebuttal. Silence is often seen as admission. Let me explain. For Amy, Henry was just a pawn to be discarded. He was like an ATM bringing her money. You do have a good job, so you must have been earning quite a bit more than average.
How'd you find out about all this?
Even Henry didn't know her true identity. Julie, did you know from the beginning?
Just in response to my in-laws' perfectly reasonable question, I pulled out several documents from my bag. They were contracts with a detective agency. I followed Henry on my own to gather evidence of his infidelity. But to be absolutely sure, I also hired a detective.
I'd never hired a professional detective before, but it was worth the high cost.
Unexpectedly, it also revealed the secrets of Amy, Henry's mistress. Henry may have indeed hidden the fact that he was married and deceived Amy, but it turned out they were both deceiving each other.
You just casually said something terrifying. This is why women can be scary.
Oh, what are you saying? If you don't want to be frightened, then simply don't do things that anger women, right?
My mother-in-law smiled sweetly, and my father-in-law coughed awkwardly. It seems that every couple has their own unseen struggles. Some people might choose to repair their relationships time and again, but humans are vastly different. I just happen to be someone who couldn't forgive. That's all there is to it. If I was going to punish him, I wanted to thoroughly investigate and maneuver this situation to my advantage.
You just casually said something terrifying. This is why women can be scary.
Oh, what are you saying? If you don't want it to be frightened, then simply don't do things that anger women, right?
It seems that every couple has their own unseen struggles. Some people might choose to repair their relationships time and again, but humans are vastly different. I just happened to be someone who he couldn't forgive. That's all there is to it. I felt the atmosphere in the room suddenly stagnate. Despite the room being lit and sunlight streaming in through the window, it seemed as if the brightness had been dimmed, casting a shadow over everything.
Are you kidding me?
Action that was ready to abandon even my parents for you, and you were planning to discard me from the start. That's a joke.
Don't you dare, that's my line. I thought you were a simple-minded guy. Easy to manipulate and milk dry before discarding. But a married man, don't drag me into messy divorce issues.
What was in class? This woman, I never thought she was like this. It seems it's hard to find someone better than Julie after all.
What? What are you talking about now?
As it was my turn to be surprised, my eyes widening as I blinked in disbelief. My husband grasped both of my hands and looked at me with a passionate gaze.
I've had an awakening. Julie, you're truly the one for me.
Julie, you're truly the one for me. Sure, I strayed a bit, but there's a saying. More haste, less speed. Let's deepen our love and live happily together from now on.
Have you lost your mind? Are you okay?
As I treatment a prance, I brushed off his hands and took a step back. The sight of him approaching me with a refreshing smile sent chills down my spine. My in-laws quickly stepped between my husband and me.
What an incredibly self-centered person you are. Listening to you is unbearable. Stay away from Julie.
I've had enough of you, but at least as a last act of mercy, I'll prevent this from becoming a police matter.
Don't obsess over Julie anymore. You're divorced now, aren't you? You should know better than to overstep boundaries. The consideration for me was so touching that I couldn't help but feel tears welling up. I wiped the tears from the corners of my eyes and composed myself again. Just one more push. Henry, you have committed many sins. You betrayed me and had an affair with Amy. You even caused an accident that left her paralyzed. These are all irreparable actions. You have changed the lives of many people. Your parents must be deeply hurt to see what their beloved son has become. You deserve to face appropriate consequences.
What are you talking about? Getting all serious? I'm not to blame for any of this, am I? It just so happened that Amy, who was more beautiful and kinder than Julie, appeared. And it just so happened that another car appeared when I was about to turn.
My parents are just hurt by my choices on their own accord, aren't they?
It's like, it's no use. It seems our son is gone.
Yes, I think anything we say now is pointless. From now on, we'll live as if we no longer have a son.
Mike C.A. recently placed my hands on their shoulders. My in-laws gave a sad smile.
Efficiency of Sectaria, I will never forgive you, not only for hurting me, but for making such kind and loving parents say such things.
Formally request alimony and report everything to your company. You can't do that. It'll be bad for my job. My husband was shouting something, but I completely ignored him and left the hospital room with my in-laws. Afterward, my husband made quite a fuss, but somehow I managed to finalize the divorce. However, he didn't give up on me. He followed me back to my parents' house, loitering near my home, turned this into a complete stalker. Terrified, I reported him to the police. After explaining everything, my husband received a stern warning from the authorities. This police incident seemed to be the last straw for his company, and they completely wrote him off. With no place left for him, he ended up resigning. Now, he's juggling part-time jobs, barely scraping together enough for a living. Now, he's juggling part-time jobs, barely scraping together enough for alimony. It's Amy, the mistress, was betrayed by one of the men she was involved with, who apparently ran off with all her money. It seems he was only in the relationship for the money and abandoned her after she became paralyzed. Then, in a twist of irony, Amy started ambushing my ex-husband, making him experience the fear of being pursued. As for me, I'm living a fulfilling life, working hard, going shopping with friends and my parents. The wounds from the divorce haven't fully healed, but I've learned from those experiences. Their mutual greed and actions against reason led them to a tragic end. If they had lived more honestly, they might have found modest happiness. That's in life. There are things that cannot be undone. Taking the example of Henry and Amy, I've decided to live a life where I do not betray the kindness of those around me.